The year was 2157, and humanity had spread across the solar system. Mars hosted 3 large cities. The moons of Jupiter and Saturn had research stations and mining operations. People lived and worked in space, proud of how far they had come. Dr. Alan Baker sat in his lab at the Lunar Research Institute, staring at his computer screen. For 6 months, he had studied strange patterns in signals from deep space. At first, he thought they were just random noise. But now he was sure someone or something was trying to communicate. "I need to call the UNSC," he said to himself, reaching for his comm unit. The United Nations Space Coalition oversaw all matters beyond Earth's atmosphere. 3 days later, a shuttle arrived at the lunar base. Catherine Moore stepped out, adjusting to the low gravity. As Earth's top diplomat for potential alien contact, she had trained for this moment her entire career. Behind her came Major Steve Clark, his military uniform crisp and his expression serious. "Dr. Baker," Moore said, shaking his hand, "show us what you found." In his lab, Baker displayed the signal patterns on a large screen. They repeat in cycles. There's structure here, mathematical patterns that couldn't occur naturally. And they're getting stronger. Whatever is sending them is getting closer. Clark frowned. "How close?" "They'll reach the edge of our solar system in approximately 72 hours, Baker said. For 3 days, teams of linguists, mathematicians, and scientists worked around the clock to prepare a response. When the alien ship appeared just beyond Pluto's orbit, humanity was ready. The vessel was beautiful, a spiral of what looked like liquid metal that somehow held its shape in space. It sent a new signal, this one clearly an invitation for communication. "We're going to make history," Moore said as their shuttle approached the designated meeting point in neutral space. The aliens called themselves the Voxeri. They looked almost like humans, but with bluish skin and eyes too large for their faces. They spoke through a translation device that made their musical language understandable. "We have watched your kind with great interest," said the Voxeri leader, who introduced himself as Elran. Few species advance so quickly from planet-bound to spacefaring. The first meeting went well. The Voxeri shared information about the galaxy, how many intelligent species existed, how travel between star systems worked, and the basic rules of galactic society. "There is much to learn," Elran told them on the 3rd day of talks, "but there is something important you must understand. The galaxy is governed by what we call the Cosmic Council, the oldest and most advanced civilizations. They maintain order and observe developing species." Moore noticed how Elran hesitated. "Observe in what way?" "They determine which evolutionary paths are beneficial to the galaxy as a whole," Elran said carefully. "Your species has been noticed." Clark leaned forward. "Is that good or bad?" "It simply is," Elran replied. "But I must warn you. Your development has been unusually rapid. This sometimes concerns the Council." "We just want to peacefully explore and learn," Moore said. "Many species begin with such intentions," Elran said. His large eyes seemed sad. "The Council will likely send representatives to assess your potential." As they prepared to return to Earth with news of the contact, Moore found herself alone with Elran. "There's something else, isn't there?" she asked. "Something you're not telling us officially." Elran looked around to ensure they weren't overheard. "My species was once like yours, curious, adaptable, quick to learn. We believed our civilization would endure forever." "And did it not?" Moore asked. "We survived, but not as we were," Elran said quietly. "The Council has a way of correcting such assumptions. They believed we would endure forever too. Until we didn't, at least not in the form we had chosen for ourselves." A chill ran down Moore's spine despite the temperature-controlled environment. "Are you warning us?" "I am sharing history," Elran said. "What you do with this knowledge is your choice. But remember, the Council is watching, and they have been doing this for billions of years. They have seen species like yours come and go." As the Earth shuttle pulled away, Moore looked back at the beautiful spiral ship. She wondered if they had just met new friends or if Elrond's words were the first hint of a threat humanity wasn't prepared to face. 5 years had passed since humans first met the Voxori. Earth now had a place in galactic society, but only as what the Cosmic Council called a probationary species. Humans could visit some alien worlds but could not vote on galactic matters or travel to certain restricted areas. Dr. Lisa Grant packed her few belongings into a small bag. As one of Earth's top anthropologists, she had been chosen for a rare honor: 6 months of study at the Great Archive. This massive space station held the collected knowledge of thousands of civilizations across the galaxy. "Are you nervous?" asked her assistant, Ben. More excited than nervous, Lisa said, though this wasn't entirely true. The Great Archive was run by the same Cosmic Council that Catherine Moore had warned Earth's leaders about. Their representatives rarely visited Earth, but humans felt their influence in the strict rules that limited human expansion. The journey took 3 weeks aboard a Voxeri transport ship. When Lisa finally arrived, the Archive took her breath away. It was a ring-shaped station larger than Earth's moon, with sections built by different alien civilizations over thousands of years. "Welcome, Dr. Grant," said her guide, a tall, thin alien with 6 arms and skin that changed colors as it spoke. "I am Zaltek, Junior Archivist, for the Biological Records section. I will assist your research." During her first weeks, Lisa studied records of how different species had joined galactic society. She noticed a pattern that troubled her. Many promising species appeared in the records, expanded rapidly, then simply vanished. One night, while working late, she found Zaltek also reviewing these records. "You've noticed it too," Zaltek said, skin turning a deep blue that Lisa had learned meant concern. "What happened to these species?" Lisa asked. Zaltek looked around to ensure they were alone. "My people call it the culling. The Council claims these civilizations destroyed themselves or faced natural disasters. But the pattern is too regular." "You don't believe that's what happened?" "My species barely survived our own culling," Zaltek said. "We were once spread across 12 star systems. Now we have just 3 colony worlds. The rest were lost in what official records call unfortunate stellar events." Lisa felt cold. What's the real reason these species disappeared? The Council has existed for millions of years. They believe certain evolutionary paths threaten cosmic stability. Species that develop in ways they consider dangerous are limited. Limited how? Lisa asked. "It varies. Sometimes through engineered conflicts or disasters. Sometimes through biological agents that slow cognitive development. The Council believes they ensure the galaxy's long-term survival." Lisa thought about humanity's rapid progress since discovering alien life. "Are we in danger?" Zaltek's skin rippled with patches of dark blue and purple. "Human brains show unusual patterns. You adapt faster than most species. You see connections others miss. The Council observers have flagged these traits." Over the next months, Lisa secretly gathered evidence. She found records of Council interventions disguised as natural events. She discovered that humans possessed neural pathways that the Council had classified as divergent and potentially destabilizing to establish order. The night before her scheduled return to Earth, Lisa encrypted her findings and prepared to smuggle them home. Zaltek came to her quarters. "They know you've been accessing restricted files," Zaltek warned. "They're already watching humans more closely than others. Your kind asks too many questions, sees too many patterns." "We need to warn Earth," Lisa said. "Be careful," Zaltek replied. "The great filter that separates developing civilizations from galactic powers isn't technological. It's the Council itself." As Lisa boarded the transport ship the next day, she noticed 2 Council observers watching her. They were tall beings with smooth, featureless faces and eyes that seemed to see through her. She clutched the small data device containing her findings closely. Earth needed to know what she had discovered before it was too late. The countdown to assessment had already begun. The message from the Cosmic Council arrived exactly 1 month after Dr. Lisa Grant returned to Earth with her findings. The Council would send representatives to conduct an assessment of human potential. No one knew exactly what this meant, but those who had read Lisa's report were worried. Paul Wright, director of the United Nations Space Coalition, called an emergency meeting. As the highest-ranking space official on Earth, the responsibility fell on his shoulders. "We need to show them our best qualities," he told the gathered leaders. "If they're looking for reasons to limit us, we'll give them reasons not to." The Council ship arrived 3 weeks later. It was massive and shaped like a perfect sphere, so black it seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. 3 Council members emerged, tall beings with smooth skin that shifted slightly, as if it wasn't quite solid. Their faces had only slight features, with large eyes that never seemed to blink. "We welcome the assessment team," Wright said, hoping his voice sounded steady. "We've prepared demonstrations of human culture, technology, and science." The lead assessor spoke in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "We are not interested in performances, Director Wright. We will observe your kind as they truly are." For 2 weeks, the assessors traveled Earth and its colonies. They watched children learn in schools. They observed scientists at work. They studied human art and music without showing any reaction. They seemed particularly interested in how humans resolved conflicts. Engineer Maria Diaz was working at the Mars colony when the assessors visited her lab. She was trying to solve a problem with the water reclamation system, a challenge that had stumped her team for months. "This configuration is deemed impossible by standard models," one assessor said, looking at her work. "That's why we're trying a non-standard approach," Maria replied. She explained her idea to use bacteria modified to break down certain compounds in a new way. The assessors watched silently as Maria completed her work, successfully demonstrating her solution. When she finished, they exchanged looks. "You solved a problem our systems classify as unsolvable with your current technology level," the assessor said. "How did you see this solution?" Maria shrugged. "I just looked at it differently. Sometimes you have to forget what you think you know and start fresh." The assessors seemed troubled by her answer. Back on Earth, Wright met with a junior council member who seemed more willing to talk openly than the others. "How is the assessment going?" Wright asked. "Your species is unusual," the council member said. "You learn quickly. You see patterns where others see only chaos. You create and destroy with equal passion. Are those bad things?" "They can be," the council member said quietly. "Some council elders believe humans show dangerous divergence traits. Your development does not follow safe, predictable paths." "What does that mean for us?" Wright asked. "I should not say more," the council member replied. "But know that not all council members share the same views on developing species." On the final day of the assessment, Wright met with the lead assessor for a summary of their findings. "We have completed our observations," the assessor said. "A full report will be provided to the council." "And what will happen then?" Wright asked. "The council will decide what level of interaction with galactic society is appropriate for humanity." Wright took a deep breath. "We hope to prove ourselves worthy partners in the galaxy." The lead assessor studied Wright's face. "You are an interesting species. You create beauty and knowledge at remarkable speeds, but you learn too quickly and forget too slowly. This is not always a virtue." As the council ship departed, Wright couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had changed. Humanity had been measured against some cosmic standard, and he feared they had been found wanting. "What did they decide?" Lisa asked when he called her. "They didn't say," Wright answered. "But I don't think they liked what they saw. Not because it was bad, but because it was different from what they expected. And that might be worse." 10 years had passed since the Council's assessment of humanity. Earth colonies now dotted the solar system. Humans had learned from alien technologies, but had created their own unique versions rather than simply copying what others had built. Captain John Foster stood on the bridge of the ESS Discovery, Earth's most advanced exploration vessel. His mission was to map the edges of human territory and ensure the safety of the outer colonies. "Captain, we're picking up strange energy readings from Beta Station," said his communications officer. "What kind of readings?" Foster asked. "Unknown, sir. The station went silent 5 minutes ago." This was the third outpost to report problems in the past month. Equipment failures, communication disruptions, and now a complete blackout. Something wasn't right. "Set course for Beta Station. Maximum speed," Foster ordered. When they arrived 12 hours later, the station appeared intact but completely dark. Foster led a team to investigate. They found the 50 crew members unconscious but alive. The station's power core was untouched, yet somehow drained of energy. Dr. Susan Cooper, the ship's xenobiologist, ran tests on the crew. "There's something strange in their brain scans," she told Foster. "Activity patterns I've never seen before." Over the next few days, the crew members woke up. None remembered what had happened. The station's security footage showed only static during the incident. "I don't like this," Foster told Cooper as they returned to the ship. "First, the mining colony on Ganymede, then the research station on Europa. Now this." "There's more," Cooper said quietly. "I've been studying medical reports from colonies near alien technologies. People are changing." "Changing how?" "Subtle things. Altered sleep patterns. Improved memory in some areas, decreased in others. It's like something is rewiring human brains, but so slowly most people don't notice." Foster frowned. "Could it be the Council?" "I think so," Cooper replied. "Remember what Dr. Grant's report said about how they limit species they consider dangerous? What if this is how they do it, not by destroying us, but by changing us?" Foster called Director Wright, who was still in charge of the UNSC despite being in his 70s now. Wright listened to their concerns with a grave expression. "We've had other reports," Wright admitted. "Strange phenomena across the system. If the Council is behind this, they're being very careful not to leave evidence." "We need to investigate further," Foster said. "If they're experimenting on us, we need to know how and why." Wright nodded. "I'll authorize a special mission. Take the Discovery to the outer reaches. We've detected unusual energy signatures beyond Pluto's orbit. Be careful. If the Council is watching, they'll notice you looking." Foster selected a small, trusted crew for this mission. Cooper joined them to continue her research. They traveled quietly, using minimal power to avoid detection. On the 6th day of their journey, they found something that made Foster's blood run cold. A massive structure floated in space just beyond the solar system. It was like nothing humans had built, a web of silver strands surrounding a pulsing core of blue light. "What is it?" Foster asked as they observed from a safe distance. Cooper studied the readings, some kind of scanning array. "It's collecting data, and the energy signature matches what we found at the affected stations." Foster watched the structure. Occasionally, pulses of energy shot from it toward Earth. "They're monitoring us, maybe even influencing us." "Can we destroy it?" asked his second-in-command. "I don't think that would be wise," Foster replied. "If the Council built this, attacking it might provoke them. We need to understand what it's doing first." As they watched, the structure suddenly changed. The blue light grew brighter, and the silver strands began to move, reconfiguring into a new pattern. "It's detected us," Cooper said, alarm in her voice. "Back up power to shields," Foster ordered. "Send everything we've recorded to Earth, encrypted channel." The structure released a pulse of energy unlike the others, brighter, more focused. It was headed straight for the Discovery. "Evasive maneuvers," Foster shouted, but he knew they might already be too late. The ESS Discovery barely escaped the energy pulse from the alien structure. Captain Foster used a risky maneuver, diving the ship behind a small moon to block the blast. The pulse hit the moon instead, leaving a crater 20 miles wide. Back on Earth, leaders from all nations gathered to discuss the growing threat. Foster and Cooper shared their findings, including images of the massive structure monitoring Earth. "We need to act now," said a representative from the Mars colonies. "If they're already changing us, we might not even know what we're losing." "But what can we do against something so powerful?" asked another. "The Council has technology far beyond ours." Director Wright looked older than his years. The weight of humanity's future bent his shoulders. "We fight with what we have. Our minds, our creativity, our willingness to adapt." In the back of the room, Major Steve Clark listened quietly. Though retired from active service years ago, he had never stopped preparing for this day. After the meeting, he approached Foster. "I need people who understand what we're facing," Clark said. "I've been building something, a movement called the Human Preservation Front. We're developing ways to resist Council influence." "Count me in," Foster said without hesitation. Meanwhile, Dr. Lisa Grant returned from another visit to the Gray Archive. She had risked her life to access restricted files, using connections with Zoltec and other aliens who secretly opposed Council methods. "There have been other species who resisted," she told Wright in a private meeting. "Not many, and most failed. But there are records of techniques they used, ways to shield minds from outside influence. We need every advantage we can get," Wright said. Engineer Maria Diaz led a team working day and night to develop technology based on Grant's findings. They created devices that could detect and block the subtle energies the Council used to influence human thoughts. "It's not perfect," Diaz explained as they tested the first prototypes. "But it might give us enough protection to think clearly, to remember who we are." The Voxari, who had first warned humanity about the Council, secretly reached out through diplomatic channels. A small faction within the Council itself questioned the methods used against developing species. "There are some who believe the old ways are wrong," the Voxari ambassador told Wright. "Some who think diversity of thought should be preserved, not controlled. We cannot help openly, but we can share information." The resistance grew stronger. The Human Preservation Front established hidden bases throughout the solar system. They developed coded communications that the Council monitoring systems couldn't detect. Foster's crew managed to capture a small Council observation vessel that had ventured too close to Earth. The alien technology inside gave Diaz's team new insights into how the Council's systems worked. "They're more vulnerable than we thought," Diaz told Clark after studying the captured ship. "Their technology is advanced, but it follows patterns we can learn to disrupt." Not everyone supported the resistance. Some humans believed cooperation with the Council was the only way forward. Others had already been influenced enough that they couldn't see the danger. Families and communities became divided over what path humanity should take. One evening, Clark gathered the core members of the resistance at a hidden base beneath the Lunar Research Institute. The room was shielded against all known forms of monitoring. "They think our time is ending," Clark told the assembled group of scientists, soldiers, and citizens. "They believe they can slowly reshape us until we're no longer a threat to their ordered galaxy, until we're just another obedient species that follows their rules." He looked around the room at the determined faces. "We need to prove them wrong. Humanity has faced extinction before, from nature, from our own mistakes. But this time we can see it coming. We know what we're fighting for." Foster nodded. "Our right to determine our own future. Our right to remain human," Cooper added. Clark placed a hand on the table where the plans for their countermeasures were displayed. "Then let's get to work." The Council must have realized humans were fighting back. Strange energy disturbances began appearing throughout the solar system, just days after the resistance captured the observation vessel. These were different from anything seen before, shimmering fields of light that seemed to bend reality around them. Dr. Alan Baker, who had first detected the Voxari signals years ago, was called in to study these new phenomena. He had spent the last decade learning alien languages and technologies, becoming Earth's foremost expert on Council communication systems. "They're setting up evolutionary dampening fields, Baker told the resistance leaders after analyzing the readings. The energy patterns are designed to slow human neural development, to make us think more simply, less creatively. Can we stop them? Clark asked. Diaz nodded. I think so. We've been studying the technology from the captured vessel. We can create countermeasures, devices that disrupt the fields. The plan was dangerous. They would need to place countermeasure devices at key points throughout human space, Earth, Mars, the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, and every major colony. Each device would need to be precisely calibrated to the local conditions. We'll need teams, Foster said. Small groups who can move quietly and quickly. As they prepared, Baker made a discovery that chilled them all. He had been translating ancient texts provided secretly by Zaltec from the Great Archive. I think I'd figure out what the Council is really afraid of, Baker said. These texts mention something called the Great Filter, an evolutionary barrier that prevents most intelligent species from reaching their full potential. What is this filter? Cooper asked. Most assume it's natural. Resource depletion, climate collapse, war, Baker explained. But these texts suggest something else. The filter isn't natural at all. The Council created it thousands of years ago. Why would they do that? Wright asked. Fear, Baker replied. Fear of what species might become if allowed to develop without limits. The Council believes they're protecting the galaxy by controlling evolution. This revelation made their mission even more urgent. If they were fighting against an artificial barrier rather than natural laws, perhaps they could truly break free. The mission to deploy the countermeasures began. Foster led a team to the outer colonies, while Clark coordinated efforts closer to Earth. Cooper and Diaz worked tirelessly to improve the technology, making each new device more effective than the last. The Council noticed their efforts. More observation vessels appeared near Earth. Strange signals interfered with human communications. Some people reported headaches, confusion, sudden changes in thinking that made complex ideas seem difficult to grasp. They're increasing the pressure, Wright told the resistance. They know we're fighting back. Help came from an unexpected source. The small group of council members, led by allies of the Voxari, secretly provided humans with technical specifications for more advanced defensive technology. Not all of us agree with the old ways, their message said. Some believe true stability comes from diversity, not control. We cannot help openly, but we offer what we can. The first countermeasure was activated on a small research station orbiting Jupiter. The effect was immediate. The strange energy field surrounding the station flickered and disappeared. The scientists reported clarity of thought they hadn't experienced in months. It works, Diaz said, her voice filled with hope. We can protect ourselves. More countermeasures were deployed across the solar system. Each success gave humans new confidence, new belief that they could determine their own path. Baker watched as the sixth countermeasure came online, protecting a key colony on Mars. The dampening field around the colony collapsed, leaving the air clear and the minds of the colonists their own again. We're the first species to see them coming, Baker said quietly. All the others were changed so gradually, they never even knew what was happening to them. Maybe that's enough to make a difference. Maybe that's enough to win. But even as he spoke, sensors detected massive energy surges at the edge of the solar system. The Council was preparing a more direct response to humanity's defiance. The true test was about to begin. The Council ships appeared suddenly, emerging from what looked like tiers in space itself. They were massive vessels, each one larger than Earth's biggest cities. They positioned themselves around Earth and major human colonies, creating a blockade that cut humanity off from the rest of the galaxy. They're done with subtle approaches, Foster said as he watched the ships take position around Mars. This is direct intervention. On Earth, Director Wright called for calm. Panic would only make things worse. He arranged a meeting with Council representatives, hoping to buy time while the resistance continued deploying countermeasures. 3 council members arrived at the United Nations building in New York. Unlike previous meetings, they made no effort to appear friendly. "Your species has violated council directives," the lead representative said. "You have interfered with necessary evolutionary guidance. This cannot continue." "We have the right to determine our own path," Wright argued. "You have no authority to change who we are." "We have maintained galactic stability for millions of years," the council member replied. "Species that develop along certain paths eventually threaten that stability. It has happened before. We will not allow it to happen again." While Wright negotiated, the resistance prepared for confrontation. Clark coordinated defense efforts, though he knew their weapons would be little use against council technology. Their real hope lay in the countermeasures and in the discoveries being made by Dr. Grant. Grant had returned to Earth with her most important finding yet. Working with data smuggled from the Great Archive, she had uncovered the Council's true fear. "It's a mathematical proof," she explained to Cooper and Baker. "Advanced consciousness, if allowed to develop without constraints, eventually leads to what they call dimensional instability." "What does that mean?" Cooper asked. "They believe that minds like ours, if fully developed, could learn to manipulate reality itself, to move between dimensions, to alter the fundamental laws of physics. They fear this would destabilize the universe." "Is that possible?" Baker wondered. "I don't know," Grant admitted, "but the Council believes it is. That's why they suppress species like ours. They're afraid of what we might become." Meanwhile, Cooper had made a breakthrough of her own. Working with biological samples from humans exposed to Council technology, she had developed a potential adaptation, a way to protect human minds from outside influence. "It's biological rather than technological," she explained to Foster. "A change to neural pathways that makes them resistant to Council manipulation. A change to what makes us human." Foster asked, concerned. "That's the dilemma," Cooper replied. "This adaptation would protect us, but it would also change us. We would still be human, but different from what we are now. It's evolution, by our choice rather than theirs." The Voxari and other alien allies contacted the Resistance with an urgent warning. They too faced extinction for supporting humanity. "The Council has marked all who aided your resistance," the Voxari message said. "Our worlds are now under blockade as well. Whatever you decide, know that your fight has become ours too." Humanity faced a critical choice. They could submit to Council limitations and survive as a controlled species. They could fight a conventional battle they would almost certainly lose, or they could embrace Cooper's adaptation, changing themselves to become something the Council could not control. As Council ships began landing troops to disable the countermeasure devices, Wright gathered Earth's unified leadership. The room was tense, filled with the weight of a decision that would determine humanity's future. "For thousands of years, we've adapted to survive," Wright said, looking at each person in turn. "We've faced ice ages, plagues, wars, and environmental collapse. Each time, we changed, we evolved, we endured. Perhaps that is our greatest strength, not fighting against change, but choosing how we change." He displayed Cooper's research on the main screen. "The Council wants to decide our path for us, but we can choose our own. We've always adapted. It's time to become something they never imagined." Outside, the sky darkened as more Council ships entered Earth's atmosphere. Time was running out. Humanity stood at the crossroads of extinction or transformation. Humanity chose transformation. The first volunteers received Dr. Cooper's adaptation through a simple injection. Nothing seemed to happen at first. Then, slowly, they began to change. "I can feel others," said one volunteer, a young scientist from the Mars colony. "Not just their presence, but their thoughts, their feelings." The adaptation spread quickly through volunteer populations. Those who chose it developed new abilities, a kind of shared consciousness that allowed them to communicate without technology, to pool their knowledge and understanding. Dr. Baker worked day and night to establish communication with other suppressed species throughout the galaxy. Using codes hidden in seemingly random transmissions, he connected human resistance cells with allies on distant worlds. "We're not alone in this fight," he told Clark. "There are others, dozens of species who have been limited by the Council, who are waiting for a chance to break free." Meanwhile, Captain Foster led the most dangerous mission of all, a desperate attempt to reach a rumored precursor technology cache beyond Council control. Ancient legends spoke of technologies left behind by civilizations that existed before the Council, technologies that might give humanity a chance. Foster's ship slipped past the blockade using stealth systems developed from the captured Council vessel. They traveled for weeks, following coordinates provided by Zoltek. "If the Council catches us, there will be no second chance," Foster told his crew. "But if we succeed, we change everything." Back on Earth, the adapted humans began exhibiting unprecedented abilities. They could share knowledge instantly across vast distances. They could work together with perfect coordination. Most importantly, they seemed immune to Council influence. "Their dampening fields no longer affect us," Cooper explained to Wright. "Our minds operate on principles they don't understand." The Council noticed the change. Their ships moved closer to Earth, preparing weapons that could sterilize entire continents. But they hesitated, unsure of what they were witnessing. "This is not a typical adaptation pattern," Council observers reported. "It does not match any known evolutionary path." As more humans accepted the adaptation, something unexpected happened. Their shared consciousness began to expand, to operate on principles beyond normal space and time. They could see patterns that had always existed but had been invisible to individual minds. The Council withdrew to an emergency session. For the first time in thousands of years, they faced something they couldn't predict or control. Foster's mission reached its destination, a small, unremarkable moon orbiting a distant gas giant. Beneath its surface, they found what they sought: technology from a civilization that had evolved beyond the Council's reach. "I don't understand how most of this works," Foster admitted as they examined the strange devices. "But the important thing is that the Council doesn't understand it either." They brought back what they could, sharing their findings through the new Human Consciousness Network. Combined with Cooper's adaptation, the precursor technology offered a path forward that the Council had never anticipated. Humanity didn't defeat the Council through violence. Instead, they transcended the conditions that made Council control possible. Modified humans began operating on a level the Council couldn't touch, couldn't monitor, couldn't influence. Years later, a non-modified human historian interviewed Maria Diaz about the transformation. Diaz had chosen to remain unmodified, to document the change from a traditional human perspective. "How would you describe what happened?" the historian asked. Diaz looked out the window at Earth below. The planet appeared largely unchanged, but its people were now something new, still human in their values and emotions, but different in ways that mattered. "They thought humanity would endure forever," Diaz explained. "They were right, just not in the way anyone expected. We didn't disappear. We evolved." "Do you regret not joining them?" the historian asked. "Someone needed to remember what we were," Diaz replied, "to record how we changed. The Council tried to make us forget who we were. By remembering our past, I help ensure our future." Outside, adapted humans continued to explore their new capabilities, pushing boundaries the Council had long feared to approach. They had not rejected their humanity. They had expanded it, fulfilled potentials that had always existed within them. The Council still watched, still waited. But for the first time in millions of years, they were no longer in control. A new kind of consciousness had emerged in the galaxy, one that offered not destruction, but a different kind of stability, built on diversity and choice rather than limitation and fear.